Hello, Goffstown. I'm Jim Craig, and I'm your host for today's session of Goffstown Today, the local public affairs program brought to you by the Goffstown Democratic Committee. Our guest today, Aron DiBacco, was on this show a couple of months ago, and she spoke about the rent and mortgage moratorium and what some of the options will be for those of us who haven't been able to keep up with rent or mortgage payments due to the pandemic. This is such an important topic to so many of us. The options are changing rapidly, so I suggest grab a pen and paper because Aron has a lot of facts that I know she's itching to tell you about. Aron is a community organizer and trainer with the Granite State Interfaith Action Fund and Granite State Organizing Project. Welcome back, Aron. Before we get to your topic, why don't you just refresh us on what your organizations are and what your role in them is, and then we'll get into the meat and potatoes.
Well, thank you very much. And so I've got a couple of slides which have the descriptions, but I would be happy just to tell you that Granite State Interfaith Action Fund unites, religious, labor, and community organizations who are rooted in faith and democratic values to strengthen our voices and decisions that shape New Hampshire's communities. And this is the sister organization to Granite State Organizing Project, which is a community organizing nonprofit based in Manchester, New Hampshire. We work on multiple issues, including healthcare, housing, education, unemployment, and immigration. And we have chapters in Manchester and Nashua. And the relationship between the two is that the Granite State Interfaith Action Fund is the part of our organization through which we work on elections and more political activity.
Okay, and how did you get involved with the mortgage and the rent issues? And what's your role in that?
Yep. So actually, we don't have any formal role in any of the programs I'm about to talk about, but we do care very much about housing and keeping people housed. And towards that end, we began tracking the different policies and procedures and programs that were available to people to help them pay their rent, to help them not get evicted, to help them work on their mortgage. So that grew into a bit of a big research project, which we've kept up since the beginning of COVID. I will at the end be giving you a link to a fact sheet that we maintain, which will have information that's current at any given point. And we just find that it's really, really important that people have access to the information that will help them stay in their homes. And so we've taken this work on as part of our way of helping our communities make it through COVID as whole as possible.
And this is a pretty complicated issue for anybody. And I'm just curious, consult with attorneys or people involved with those kind of issues.
Absolutely. So we draw on our resources from all of the formal sources. So today I'm going to be talking a lot about a new rental assistance program. And so I've taken that information from the New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority and the Community Action Programs, who are the organizations that manage that in New Hampshire. And whenever I have any questions, I will actually write to the leadership in those groups and ask them to check. Then before we post or share the information in our fact sheet, we ask the people who formally control it to double check and make sure that we got everything correct. I will say that we do not aim for deep knowledge in the fact sheet. We want to help people figure out which programs might help them and know how to find them.
Okay, so I'm a young parent living with my wife and a couple of kids in an apartment in Goffstown, and work has been spotty, and because of COVID, and I haven't been able to keep up with the rent. I owe back rent, and I'm not sure how I'm going to make this much rent. What can I do about that?
Well, first of all, give yourself permission to be scared, because that's pretty scary, especially when you have kids depending on you for your care. And there are two, well, we're not ready for it yet. There are two, there's a number of smaller programs that help people with rent and utilities and sometimes mortgage. But there is also some big programs that have been funded by the federal government. Many of you will be familiar with the COVID CARES Act that had the there was about $20 million came into the state last year, and of that, 13 or 14 million was distributed to people before the program ended in December. Since then, there have been no additional programs here. A new program was approved by the feds at the end of December, but it just got liftoff yesterday. And that is called the New Hampshire Emergency Rental Assistance Program. So I haven't figured out yet how they say the NH, but we can call it NHERAP until we know what people settle on. So that program was designed by the Housing Finance Authority, Gopher, which is the office that the governor's office that oversees the recovery and repair emergency funds. But the part that matters to the people who are listening to this is that the program is managed by the CAPS, by the Community Action Programs. And so that's who you will apply to if you need this help, and they will walk you through what's involved in getting the help that you need. The big news is that before, where we had $20 million, this time there's 200 million, and another big chunk of money, I haven't figured out exactly how much, is on its way to us. So this is a very well-funded program. In addition to about a quarter,
20 million, 20 million last.
It was 20 million last time, and this time it's 200 million, and there's more money coming in from the bill that was just passed. I think it was last week.
Rental assistance? Is that all for rental assistance?
It's anything that helps people stay in their homes or to be safely housed. So I actually do have a chart, which slide coming up soon, which will show you exactly what's covered. Before I get to that, though, I'd like to say that the CAPS program is the big one. In addition, Rockingham County also got some of this money. So if you live in Rockingham County, they will have a very similar program to help people stay in their homes if they're renters. And you can go to the Rockingham County website and find that information. It's not yet up and running, but they are working on it. So, but the short and important answer is there's about $200 million floating around the system, which will help people stay. And I can talk about who's eligible. If I could have that slide. There we go. So go back. You're going to go back. There's one that says who's eligible. And there it is. And that is kind of small. So I hope that the people at home can read it all right. And I will read it anyway. So to find out if you are eligible to apply for this, for some of this money, which just came into the state, you have to be paying rent on a residential building. Your household income needs to be 80% or less of something called the area median income. When you go to CAPS, when you call up the CAPS and apply, they will tell you exactly what that means. But the rough number is that a family of 4 with $77,000 a year is at 80% of the area median income. So, and that's for New Hampshire in general. So if your area median income is around there, then it's worth calling. And I'm sorry, if your income is in the neighborhood of $77,000 for a family of 4, then you should call the CAPS agencies and say, hey, I think I might be eligible for this program. After you've cleared that bar, you either have to have had decreased income or increased cost in the last year, some financial hardship because of COVID, or it's one or the other. Either of these will get you in the door. To have someone in your household has been unemployed sometime between March 13th and the time that you apply. So going back to a year, if you've been unemployed anytime in the last year and your income is 80% or less, and if a family of 4 earns less than $77,000, then you're eligible for this program. And it, no matter how you're applying, you need to demonstrate that you are at risk of losing your house, and that if you lose your house, you don't have a safe place to go, or that you're living in unsafe housing. You had a question?
That could be either person could be unemployed, then they would meet that.
Yes, and to have qualified for unemployment sometime in the last year. So not necessarily unemployed now.
Okay.
Right. So the short answer is that if you're in trouble, you should call the agencies and say, hey, I think I might be eligible for this program. And then we go to the next slide.
Can I ask you, is there any, like, say, a person or a family owes 2,000 as opposed to a family who's really had it rough and they owe maybe $10,000 or $2,000 in rent? Is there any cap on how much? And the other question is, this is not a loan, is it? This is, what is it?
So this is a grant. So that's very important. This is a grant. With this money, you can become whole with your landlord, with your utility companies, with the internet company. And then you don't owe anybody any money.
So it doesn't have to be spent entirely on rent?
It can be spent on rent. Well, that's funny. I have a slide here that tells us. So
Okay.
Thank you for setting me up perfectly. So it can be for rent, and that can be rent that you've owed for anything since the last, since March or April 1st, perhaps. It can be for rent going way back, and it can also be for your next couple of months' rent. If you know that you're unemployed and you're going to be in trouble and you're not going to be able to make your rent, they will give you a check to pay your rent in the future. It can be for any housing related expenses. This can be electricity or water or sewer or internet, as I said before, any home heating oil, fuel. All of those things can be paid for. You can apply for the assistance with the expenses, the utilities, the internet, etc., even if you don't need the rent money, right? So if you're just a little bit under the bus, but you could use some help, then you can call and they can give you this. One of the big differences between this program and the last program is the last program had a cap of about $250 per household, and people couldn't go back and get more. There is no financial cap on the assistance that you can get, and you can get assistance for up to 15 months. There's some points at which you need to reapply. But
if you go to the program last year, it doesn't stop you from being able to get assistance.
Completely unrelated. You do not, it doesn't matter if you applied for, got assistance last time, they don't look at that at all. The other thing that's interesting about what this money can be spent on, it can be spent on moving expenses. So if somebody is in a situation where, say there's lead paint and the landlord hasn't taken care of it, or there's some structural difficulties which make it dangerous, the windows are falling out, that people can take this money and use it for moving expenses, including security deposits, which is not something that's found in many of the other programs.
Let me ask you, how about the courts? What's the situation with the eviction process now?
Actually, what I'd love to do is just wrap up how to apply, and then we'll move right on to evictions. So if I could have the next slide again.
Okay.
Thank you. So this is pretty easy. If you think you might qualify, go to capnh.org. It will ask you where you live. It will take you to the right place, and nice people will help you apply and figure out if in fact you are eligible for some of this money. If you live in Rockingham County, another place you can apply, though you cannot apply to both of them. You can apply to either Rockingham County or to the CAPS program, though they're essentially the same rules for what they'll pay for and who's qualified. You can go to rockinghamcountynh.org, and there's a big banner across the top that says Rent Relief Program. So then there's some interesting changes in this one before I move on to the eviction. In the past, the tenant had to apply, and if the landlord wouldn't apply or wouldn't participate in some way, the tenant couldn't get the money. So this time, if the landlord, for whatever, they have a series of checks, but if the landlord does not participate in the program, then the tenant can apply and the money goes directly to them for them to pay their rent out of their own.
It goes to the tenant and the landlord?
Say that again?
It goes to the tenant rather than the landlord?
Right. I mean, there's a pretty high bar. The landlord is given a chance. It's about 2 weeks to make sure they're not going to respond. But if they say, no, I'm not going to do it, or if they never get back to the tenant or to the CAP agency, then the tenant can apply directly and receive the payment directly. Another change along the same lines is that if the tenant isn't applying, the landlord can start the application process. All they need is for the tenant to sign the application, but they can fill out their piece, they give it to the CAP agency then follows up with the tenant. So the landlord has more power to get it moving if the tenants aren't cooperating or feel unmotivated to see if they can get the help. So those are two very important changes in this program from the last one. And now, if you could go to the eviction slide, please.
Can I ask, how long is the turnaround after application? How, is there an estimated time when you get the money?
I don't think anybody knows that just yet. I know that last time it was about a week to 10 days from the time the application was approved until the landlord had the money. But this program just started yesterday. There was a waiting list of 7,500 people to receive the applications. And
And I guess,
it's a new program getting up and running. So my guess is that it will be a longer process, at least initially.
I think this is important enough. Would you, if somebody wants to get one of those application forms or has questions about any of that stuff that you talked about, this might be a time to repeat. Who do they call or where do they email?
Okay, so the easiest one is capnh.org, right? Just capnh.org. And that will take you to that will land you on a page that will then take you through the rest of the process.
All right, thank you. So
then
I can't see screens here from where I am. So
okay, so now we're looking at a how to apply screen. I mean, now we can go to the eviction moratorium. Thank you.
Right.
So this actually has bearing on the question you just asked, because so yesterday was the 15th of March. 2 weeks from now, what's called the CDC moratorium, which is the moratorium that is protecting most of the tenants now across the country, is set to expire on the 31st. Now it is possible that it will be extended, and many people have, there's reasons to believe that it will be extended, but it has not yet been extended. So as we stand now, there's a 2-week period for these 7,700 applications to be processed and to get the money to people in times to pay their rent before their eviction protection ends on April 1st. And everybody is aware, everybody who's thinking about this is aware that this is insufficient time to get everybody who will eventually have the money processed through the system. So the Finance Authority, the Housing Finance Authority, and other parties are reaching out to judges in the state and asking them to be lenient when eviction cases come before them and the person who's being evicted is in the middle of applying for this program, asking for just a little bit of grace at the end. So the CDC moratorium, if you want to be eligible for it, it's a very simple process. You just need to be afraid that you're going to get kicked out of your apartment because you can't pay the rent, and you have no place to go where you will be safe. You're either going out into the homeless system or into a crowded living situation, which would make COVID more transmissible. So if you are in a situation where you can't pay your rent, then you type in CDC moratorium, and then it will give you it will take you to a page that has, you have to sign something which says, I promise that I am in economic difficulty and that I can't pay my rent and I don't have a good alternative if I have to move out. You sign that, you give it to your landlord. Your landlord is then not permitted to evict you for non-payment for the duration of the CDC moratorium. So if in fact it's extended past the end of this month, then that declaration will protect you past the end of this month. So that's very important. There are other mortgage protections. So that's the big one that most people know about and are keeping their eye on. There are additional ones. If small landlords have received certain mortgages that are backed by the Finance Housing Authority, so Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, and they have gotten permission to not pay their mortgage, then they are not allowed to evict any of their tenants. And there's some other rules there. That is kind of complicated. I do write a little bit, we covered a little bit in the fact sheet that we'll be giving you access to, or you just go to Granite State Organizing Project.org and click on the COVID resources.
Aron, can I ask a question? I think I know the answer, but I'm just going to ask it.
Yep.
The program that started yesterday for renters, a landlord can apply to that, saying that these tenants owe me this much money. Can he or she?
Yes. Yes,
They
that's
can.
one of the things that's new about this program. The landlord has to get the signature, the tenant's signature on the application. But everything else, the landlord can fill out as much as they know, and they can give it to the community action program, to the agency, and the CAP staff will then talk to the tenant about getting the rest of the information they need.
And if landlord pays the gas or the oil or the heat, they can apply for that as well, I assume, then?
Probably not,
Probably not.
because it's not an apartment they're living in.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so I'd like to talk a little bit about what's going on for mortgage help, because landlords are people too and need their help. So
Yep.
forgive my dog in the background. He's convinced it's time to go out, but he will have to wait. So mortgage help, there are right now, mostly what people have access to is forbearance, which means that you don't have to pay it now, but you do have to pay it eventually. Again, if you have a federally backed mortgage, such as Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, there are certain rules about what your lending institution needs to do. Your best bet is to call the bank or the organization that holds your mortgage and find out what your options are. You can also go to the Consumer Finance Information site managed by I have the link at the end. And that has a lot more information on that. But that, of course, is forbearance, and you eventually need to pay it back. Generally, that amount is not due until the house is sold or refinanced. But those, again, are details that owners would need to work out with their lenders. The
So
really exciting news.
It take the that you missed and tack them on to the end of the mortgage.
Yes.
No,
That
you pay-
is generally what I've heard the banks are doing. But
Okay.
again, you need to talk to your bank and work out a deal with, make the arrangements with them, because this isn't one you'd want to make assumptions about. We're not going
So-
to, right? You
but
would want
is
to
it-
make sure there wouldn't be a balloon payment immediately after the end of the pandemic, for example.
Is the federal or state governments providing any money to help with mortgages?
So this is the next point, where it says pending there, the homeowner assistance fund. This is new. Now, people could get help with their mortgages under the 20 million we had last year. People could use that 2,500 of one-time payment for mortgages. Mortgages, of course, are not included in the New Hampshire emergency rental program that we were just talking about, but there is a program that the federal government has approved. And as of yesterday or 2 days ago, New Hampshire hadn't yet applied for the money, but they've got 45 days to do it, and I can't imagine that they won't. And this is a program that is for people who own property with 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 units, and it is a generous program designed to help people stay in their homes with a lot of lead time, no caps. The details about how New Hampshire will organize it are not yet available because they haven't yet designed it. But the fact sheet that I mentioned before that GSOP keeps will have that updated information when it becomes available. No matter what when that program starts, if you are in trouble because you don't know how to pay your mortgage, there are a lot of housing counseling services that know the tricks and the trades of the trade and can tell you what your options are and how to navigate, or maybe how to negotiate with the bank. And one of those which you can look into and reach out to for help is homesahead.org. So yes, there is more help for people who are paying mortgages than there was in the past. We expect and hope.
And I've been thinking, and I saw something in the notes that this is a very, very stressful year. It's been a very stressful year. Owing money, I don't know, it drives me crazy, and I imagine I'm not alone in that. And are there any counseling services offered for the stress that is everybody's feeling today?
I expect that there are, but that's not one of the areas that I've made a point of learning a lot about. I know that the housing counseling service that I just mentioned are specifically about how to help people pay their mortgages and stay in their homes. I think the Front Door Agency does it. I think Neighborhood Works might. Probably I would say that if you call 211 or go to 211.org and ask for a reference to housing counseling, that they would be able to tell you which one you have in your neighborhood. I would also expect that if you call and say, you know, my family's pretty stressed out and we're looking for somebody to help us process all these really difficult emotions, again,
Wrong with looking for
that
that.
the 211 might be able to direct you to resources as well. And
But you want to put one more time where people should call today if they have trouble or they want.
absolutely, you want to give me that last slide for further information? Thank you. So as I said, capnh.org. If you want to find out about the new Emergency Rental Assistance Program, NIFA.org, which is the New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority. They are intimately involved in administering these programs, and so they also have some really good information on their website. 211.org. Pretty much any problem you're in, call, tell them what you're trying to find, and they will probably be able to direct you. If you get someone who doesn't seem so helpful, try again later, because you know, as with anything, that some people know more than others. And if you don't like the answers you got, try again later. And then I put us here, granitestateorganizing.org, which is a mouthful, but hopefully it's worth the trip. And when you get there, you click on COVID-19 resources, and you'll get to the fact sheet, which will always be updated with the current information available. Also, feel free to reach out to me. I'm Aron DiBacco, and my email is adibacco@granitestateorganizing.org. And I will be happy to help you in any way that I can.
Great. Thank you, Aron. Hopefully we're heading out of this situation, but it's good to know that there's money and people out there willing to help.
Right. And I really encourage people to take advantage of what's out there, because ultimately we want to return to economic
Watch these
activity.
programs here on GTV through the video page on our website, goffstowndems.com, by searching for the Goffstown Democrats on YouTube or on our Facebook page, www.facebook.com/Goffstown. Please like and share them widely, and thank you for watching.